Hello and welcome to another episode of It Came From the Page. And we are talking the first week of summer slashers. And what have I been reading for my dual TBR? Because I did June on the Range on Friday, and today I'm going to be talking about some of the slasher books I've been reading. If you hear a loud chainsaw in the background, that's because somebody is doing lawn work and using a very loud chainsaw. But I figured, if you're ever going to be hearing background noise in a video, probably hearing chainsaw sounds when I'm talking about slasher movies and slasher books, it's not the end of the world. It's going to be fine. So this will be interesting. I'm going to start with the bad and then go to the good. If you have any preference in future videos, please just let me know in the comments. Should I end with bad stuff or should I start with bad stuff? Hopefully I don't have to do this too often, but I read a book this week that I hated. I absolutely despised. And that has not happened in a very long time. Maybe ever. I don't know if I have been so strongly opposed to a book in a very long time. And what's kind of interesting is that I'm in the minority for this. So I'm going to be talking about this book. The Summer is Ended and We Are Not Yet Saved. This is a book from 2013. It is out of print, and it is very hard to find. I've seen people drop like $200 on this. Spoiler alert, don't. It's a terrible book, but I'll get to that in a second. And I was lucky that it is from, that there was a copy at my local library. So they actually had two copies of this, so I got it from the library. So I'm not, God bless the libraries, because I am not out of any money. So I'm glad in that regard. So yeah, this is a book that people seem to really like. I know that I was reading on Goodreads everyone else's reviews of this, and I know Kelsey from Slime and Slashers was saying some nice things about it. Adam Cesare, who's like another booktuber and also wrote Clown in the Cornfield, a book which I kind of liked, spoke highly of this book. And then even Shades of Orange, who's another booktuber, she was talking about how much she liked this book. So I'm very interested as to maybe what I'm missing. As always, if you enjoy a book that I don't enjoy or don't like, that's great, as long as it's not like a racist or misogynist or like something an ist, right? Then if it's just a piece of art that we have a different opinion on, then I'm always kind of glad when somebody reads a book and enjoys it, because even though I'm going to talk very many mean things about this book in a few seconds, I'm always happy when somebody enjoys a book. So I'm no means attacking anyone else's opinions, only sharing my own. And as always, if you read a book, I'm super glad you're reading. 2, I'm always glad if it works for you. I always want everyone to read who watches anything or reads anything for it to work for them. So just keep all that in mind. So this book, to at all try to find some sort of meaning to this book, I'm going to call this the most quintessential Canadian book of all time. This book might as well be dripping maple syrup. And as a Canadian, that's not really a compliment, because, so here's the thing. This book, like Canada, has a very sweet, welcoming presence at first. So you go into it and it's too sweet. It doesn't feel real to me as this book starts, but it was, in my opinion, it was kind of written like, honestly, I thought it was like written like a Disney Channel original movie. Like I didn't really find the central relationships that compelling, but I also didn't find it terrible. At first, I was just like, okay, this is fine, this is sweet. And then when you get to the underbelly of this book, it's mean, it's cruel, and needlessly horrible. And I think the same could be said about Canada, which is, if you're not from Canada, you don't know about all the horrible things in Canadian history and Canadian past that have been enacted, and there is a lot of horrific racism. COVID brought out a lot of the worst parts of the country. There is a storied history of bad things in Canada, and there is a lot of bad things in this book. Not to any of the degrees that I'm talking about overall, right? Like, this book is it's just mean. I don't think it's like, it's offensive in any way. It's just mean and pointless and disturbing without earning it. But I just mean, the meanness at the core is, to me, I could almost call this like a metaphor for Canada. This glossy, sweet opening, and then at its core there is a lot of meanness that needs to be rooted out. So if you haven't read this book, and it's hard to find nowadays, so if you haven't read this book, the general idea is that a mom and a son who start the book. The mom is a makeup effects artist on horror films, to which all of her parts, like explaining makeup effects, was probably the best part of the book. But basically, she's got a new gig to go to Toronto to do the filming of this horror movie, so she needs to do something with her son. She's a single mom. So her son goes to Bible camp, and essentially you get a little bit of stuff that's been going on with her while she's making the movie, mainly through messages and emails, and then you are mainly sticking with the main character, the main boy, as he goes through this summer camp that eventually gets a bunch of like brutal things happen because of a slasher movie. The kid is like 11. There is a lot of murder of 11 to 13 year olds just getting brutally murdered. And just so a fair warning, if you're already not sold by that, don't pick up this book. But that's the main through line. And where the biggest issues I find is that I found that opening with the mom and son too saccharine. It didn't feel believable to me. I thought she was an interesting character, and I was interested to get more into her life. But the problem is everything you get from her is from the perspective of her explaining her life to her son. So I feel like a lot of things you have to like kind of read into, and you have to get through a lot of like, ugh, all right, like I get what you're doing, book. Like all of her letters to her son have like this overblown, quirky feel to them that I just could not stand after a certain point. And then I got to the rest of the book and was like, oh, I want those terrible letters that I didn't enjoy back. And so I want to preface as we go into this, I like bleak books. I like bleak material. I just think that if you're going to write a bleak story, you better be good. For the most part, when you go into a movie or a book or anything like that, especially one that's like summer camp slasher based, you're going in there for some type of entertainment. And for me, one of the things about slashers, and what I like about slashers, is that slashers in a lot of ways are anti-power narratives. You are not reading this book to feel ultra powerful, right? Like it's not like a superhero book or a manga where it's really a high power fantasy. I always find slashers as being survival fantasies, if nothing else. Like this idea that, the world is tough, the world can throw a lot at you, but you can make it. Not always, but sometimes you can make it. You can survive the hardships of life. And what does that mean afterwards? Well, that's something to talk about. But it's like that idea of like surviving the worst parts of life and making it through and making it to the ending. And in many ways, that's the fantasy element. Because in a good slasher, you don't want the kids to die because the kids are really well drawn and really well described. For example, the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. In the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, I'm always rooting for the kids. I don't want the kids to die. I want the kids to succeed against Freddy. I get emotional in those movies because you get connected to these kids and you want them to live and have a good life. And I feel like that this book is like just spits in the face of any of that, of any hope, and it's just bleak for bleakness sake, and I don't think there's any meat on the bones. I was seeing a lot of people talk about how this is a deconstruction of the slasher, and I don't think it is. I don't think it earns the bleak, mean ending, or like the brutalness that it imposes on these characters, because I don't find the characters particularly well drawn. I find them mostly, other than our main kids, because there's like 3 or 4 kids that you get introduced to and you get more with them, you don't get any attachment to even some of the ancillary characters. There's one counselor in this, and her only attribute is liking chess. We don't know any more about her. And then she just horribly dies at one point, but you like never learn any more about her other than, oh, this girl likes chess. And you're like, okay, if I was reading a campy, fun slasher book, that's fine, but this is not fun. This is overly brutal, overly depressing, and I didn't feel like there was anything in here to earn it. For example, one of my favorite movies of all time is Martyrs, and I like new French extremity films overall. Martyrs is a truly depressing, truly terrifying work, and it is not a fun watch, and it is very bleak, but what makes it work, what makes all of it have a point to it, is that there's a very specific message from that movie. And that movie is talking about how we almost always romanticize trauma. And this idea of, in that movie, it's like this cult of people who like torture people to the brink of death, and they think at the brink of death they understand what's next. Like they know the meaning of life. They understand what's next. And the entire point of that movie and that story is that we romanticize all of these horrible things that happen to people, and sometimes shitty things just happen and there's no deeper meaning for it. We want to ascribe some sort of elevation if you've gone through any trauma or anything like that, and you feel like there's a point to it. So it's bleak, it's horrifying, it takes a lot out of you, but there's a point to it. The meanness in this book and where this book leaves you off, I don't think it earns at all. At all. And I just, when I was left, after I put this book down, I was like, what was the point of that story? Why did you write this story? What is the point of this? What am I supposed to get out of this? Oh, that life is bad and life is tough? Yeah, okay, thanks, Ravenlord 42069. I get it. Oh, life is hard. Yeah, we all know that. Okay? Let's get on to something. What's the point of this story? There has to be meaning to this. There has to be some kind of point. And I just felt like I just got like this gut punch of an ending. And I was like, I don't think you earned that. I don't think there was a point for doing that gut punch ending. So yeah, not a fan of this book at all. Also, I think that some of the stuff it says about Toronto specifically is just weird. I feel like I don't know. This is written by a writer from Halifax, and the way that they talk about Toronto is very weird, and I don't think is accurate to how Toronto is at all. I lived in a small town, and when I went to Toronto, none of this even remotely seems accurate. And I find that, they do some interesting stuff with the mom in this, and I do like the main kid in this story, and the story is written in such a way that it's very easy to read. Like, I read this in one sitting. I was never tempted to DNF it until the ending, to which I was almost threw this across the room because I just thought it was mean, brutal, and has no point, and there's no enjoyable elements to this. I don't think it deconstructs anything. I just think it's bad. Anyways, I got that from the library, so it doesn't really matter. And just so you know, I didn't like throw it. I like put it on the bed. Like that was like it looks more theatric. There was like a bed right beside me where it just landed nicely. So I'm not like destroying library books. Just so you know. The good things that I read. I started the anthology of Ripper. Haven't finished it yet. But it's really, really good, and I wanted to kind of pace it out. It was like really, really good, really brutal. But again, brutal with a point. Brutal, you're trying to tell a story. Brutal, you're trying to talk about worldly events. And we're all trying to talk about our obsession with this old case of Jack the Ripper and the various creative people who are tackling that case and how they're tackling it and everything like that. And so far, about 160 pages in, all of the stories have been really, really good. So I'm really liking that anthology, and we'll definitely talk about that in the future. I also started the novelization for Dean Koontz's by Dean Koontz for the Funhouse. I'm not finished that. I'll probably finish that this evening. It's bad. It's not great. It's not a great novelization. But it's not as bad as The Summers Edited We Are Not Yet Saved. So, yeah, other than that, other than the reading that I've been doing, I have been trying to cram in as much slasher movies as I can. Basically, I sit down at 9 p.m. and then from 9 p.m. to midnight, I'm watching slasher movies for now. I'm going to pepper in some westerns as we go, obviously. But I've been watching a lot of really good and some not so good slasher movies. So, we visited Maniac Cop. Great movie. Has a lot to say about police brutality, and that's pretty impressive that it was made in the 80s. So I think it ages well. I watched Pledge Night. a very, very bad, immature, dumb slasher movies. I hated it. I watched The Funhouse because I'm reading the novelization, but I got inspired to finally read the novelization because I watched the movie again, which is a wonderful Tobe Hooper movie that is basically like a slasher, but it's all about just, you know, the journey into madness, essentially. And I don't think anyone does a better descent into madness than Tobe Hooper, especially in that era. So The Funhouse is a kind of an obscure little horror gem, but it's good. It's a good slasher movie. I think it holds up. Then I watched a Giallo movie, Torso, which is a Giallo movie. And if you don't know what Giallo is, what is fun about this month is the 2 points in history where I think slashers and westerns were really, really intertwined was during that era where there were so many spaghetti westerns being made and there were so many Giallos. Giallos are basically a mixture of thriller and slasher. They are kind of set as their own subgenre. They're pretty much an Italian type of film. I would probably classify them mostly as slashers. I think there are more slashers than thrillers because there are some brutal stuff in them. But they are so kind of popular that they're called Giallos. And the Gialli was something that really, you see where slashers go, because a lot of Giallos are from the 70s, and a lot of the mainstream horror movie slashers that we know and that are big output in pop culture come in later 70s and the 80s, especially. So Giallo is almost like a ramp up to our version of the slasher that we know, and they really did kind of help to lay a lot of the groundwork for slashers in general. So Torso is a pretty good one with some very harrowing scenes. I mean, it's a Giallo. If you've seen one Giallo, you've seen most Giallos. They are kind of pretty nuts, but I like Torso quite a bit. One that I just disturbed the hell out of me, Born to Hell, not really a slasher, but is basically somebody has put the Richard Speck murders, which were a group of horrific murders done by the spree killer Richard Speck, and he murdered an entire home full of nursing students. And this is telling that story, but it's set in Belfast during the IRA. And it is very interesting, very, very disturbing. I don't know if I'd recommend this to nearly anyone. I think it does a lot of interesting things with the male gaze, and does it in a very disturbing way that I don't think I'll forget this movie anytime soon. I don't know if I enjoyed watching it, but I was certainly... it hit me. And it hit me in a way that I felt like, at least in my experience, I felt like it was earned. I didn't feel cheated out of my night like I did with the aforementioned book that I read. And lastly, last night I finished The Summer Has Ended and We Are Not Yet Saved. And after doing a big long walk, because I had to do a walk because I was so frustrated from this book, I had to just walk and listen to music and just like think, what was the purpose of this damn book? And I got home and I was so frustrated. I was like, oh my goodness, I just need to watch something that I'll enjoy immensely. So I watched Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 and Freddy's Revenge and Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. Dream Warriors is one of the best slasher films ever made. A beautiful, wonderful film. I do like Freddy's Revenge quite a bit. I do think that it's one of those movies where a lot of people go, oh, it's the gay Nightmare on Elm Street. And it is very gay. Like, there's a lot of, like, homoerotic elements in that movie. I do think the problem is, like, if you look at it through that lens, it's a pretty problematic film because it's almost like a Pray the Gay Away film. And the way that Freddy is defeated and everything about Freddy, like, you get to, like, some dicey territory. And I've actually heard it talked about on, there's a wonderful podcast called Attack of the Queer Wolf, which is a podcast all about, like, tackling various horror films through a gay and lesbian lens. And it argues more that, like, Dream Warriors is the better queer, like, if you're gonna assign any Nightmare on Elm Street a queer reading, it's way more good and it's way more rewarding to put that lens onto Dream Warriors versus Freddy's Revenge. So, Freddy's Revenge, I haven't seen it yet, but Mark Patton, one of the stars of Freddy's Revenge, has a great, what I've heard is a great documentary talking about his experience making that and the legacy of that film to his own life, called Scream Queen. So I would definitely recommend checking that out, and I want to check that out after rewatching Freddy's Revenge, which I think has some really cool effect sequences, and it just, where it can get bad depending on what lens you read it through. But I think Dream Warriors is amazing, and I love Dream Warriors so much, and it made me happy and saved my Saturday night after being super, super mad from that book. Hopefully the rest of the books I read will be better, but regardless, I always know that the movies are there for me. So thank you, slasher movies, for making me still believe. I would love to hear if you guys read any slasher books so far, what you've read, what you thought. Do you super disagree with me on The Summer Has Ended and We Are Not Yet Saved? If so, I would love to hear what you have to say. I would love to hear you defend it. And as always, like I said, when I'm talking about a movie or property I didn't like, I am not attacking your opinion. I want to hear your opinions, especially if it differs from mine. So I hope you guys are having a good week. Have a good day. Bye.